And welcome in, everybody, to another episode of the High Low Sports Podcast, the sports show that does not require a committee to tell you that you should tune in, and it doesn't leave anybody out. We invite everybody along for the ride. Is DJ joined, as always, by my co-host, Kelcey, as we get ready to talk football, and a little bit of everything in between. And you know what? Good. I think everyone knows exactly where we're going to be going with this.
Yeah, you know what? Don't worry. Nobody's going to get slighted in this one. They just might be slightly offended. We definitely have the two-ply for you. Not necessarily by tumors this time, but we do have some two-ply for you. Just in case you get a little too emotional about this one. Looking at you, my former team growing up.
Yeah, that's there's a lot to get into. We're gonna get all that in a moment, but first we're gonna get into the first part of our show. That is, of course, the tip-off brought to you by our good friends over at SeatGeek. Use code Belly with Sports for $20 off your first set of tickets, comedy shows, sporting events, festivals, anything along those lines. Use code Belly with Sports, get yourself $20 off that first purchase. And we're gonna actually go and start in the NFL with the Dynasty. Is it over? Is it done? With Kansas City, unfortunately, continues to struggle. They've now plummeted to 6-7, whatever that means. Apparently, that's a thing. And a rough loss to the Texans. Travis Kelcey, old, not looking great. Patrick Mahomes, 3 picks, sub 50% completion. The defense, not too bad, honestly, on Sunday for the most part. I mean, for them, outside of a couple Nico Collins out there somewhere, not much more you could ask for. Chris Jones looked good, but Andy Reid almost looking like he's back in Philadelphia at moments too, not his sharpest moments. Kansas, they're not mathematically eliminated yet, but it feels like the season's almost all but cooked. But as soon as you say it with your chest, they're gonna win out and backdoor ass backwards their way in and be annoying. So I'm gonna say they're not dead, but they need some help. They need a lot of help, especially with the Chargers beating the Eagles. They need a lot of help.
Yeah, look, this team has just been struggling. We saw struggles last year, right? At times, it wasn't great last year. This year, it's like, oh, we figured it out last year. We can figure it out again. We can still make our run. It doesn't work that way with professional athletes on the other team. Like maybe in down years, but unfortunately, like your athletes got hurt this year. If you're Kansas City, that hurts a lot of what you're trying to do. You lost 2 guys at certain points in times that really are crucial. You have no running game right now. I mean, I'm sorry. I picked up Isaiah Pacheco, and that's the biggest dumb decision I've ever had in my fantasy football career. And you know what? It just continues to compound itself on top of that. There were already rumors of Travis Kelcey retiring preseason, going out of last season, coming into this season. It looks like mentally he has slightly retired. It's not the same levels. I'm not going to blame him for the loss, but there are moments that you see that are un-Travis Kelcey like every single week that you're like, that's not the guy that is one of the all-time best tight ends in all time. Like he is not playing that same level, and we see it all the time. There's the old saying of stick around long enough to see yourself become the enemy. Well, that's what's happening right now to Travis Kelcey in a lot of cases. He's not necessarily the enemy, but he's not helping his cause, not helping the team, not helping Patty like he once was. And that's tough to sit here and watch. But yeah, is it cooked? I've seen crazier things happen from an Andy Reid team, but it does feel like this season's hit a rough spot for sure. Can you get through it? Sure, throw some chains on there. Maybe you can dig yourself out of the ice there, but you're slipping backwards, and you got to figure it out quickly. You don't have any leeway going for the rest of the season. Not that they've had much leeway for the last couple of weeks, but especially now, they don't have any leeway.
It's really weird too, is Travis has had a weirdly good season statistically. Like he's still, I think, a top 5 or so right tight end statistically. It's just when you watch it, there's like those moments you mentioned where it's like, I think he could have got away there. Oh, the Texans one was kind of the avalanche where like the passes were dropped, the ones led to picks. The first time I've ever seen in man coverage where the guy guarding him basically had him cooked pillar to post. Yeah. That was the first time he could not separate it, just couldn't get away. Granted, Houston's secondary is good and does that to a lot of people much younger. So at the same time, 6 in one hand, half a dozen the other. So like I said, that one's not him. Where I think is concerning is you look at the guys like Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, Hollywood Brown. Those are the guys who need to pick up the slack. And I can't remember the exact data point. I don't have it off the top of my head. I know like I'm the numbers guy. I'm supposed to have that, but I can't remember it. But there is a stark difference in when the Chiefs play man versus zone coverage, like when they go against it. Against zone, they've been so much more consistently effective because Travis just finds that spot and sits there and it works. Rashee Rice just finds that spot, sits there, it works. But in man coverage, outside of when they played the Colts because they're terrible, but when they played actual good teams that played man coverage, they just had trouble separating. And when they did, you saw some of the drops, like those contested catches. If this was Madden's, like their contested catch rating was low. So the footsteps made it pop out, or we saw it really bad yesterday. The drops came in full force. And then Patrick, he's unsettled. The offensive line's shaky. He's, I won't say panicking, but he's getting a little happy to run, happy to throw, happy to elude. He's looking down instead of looking up. It's the wheels kind of fell off. It's like last year they won every game by the skin of their teeth, like you mentioned. It looked terrible, but winning is a skill, and they mastered that skill last year. It's overcorrected to this year, so now all the close games they lose, they can't win a close game to save their life, minus against a terrible team like the Colts. So now it's kind of which means it's kind of regressing to the mean. So they have to win out, and they need the Chargers, who do have a very, very tough last few games. They need the Chargers to have a rough down the stretch, which starts with they have to beat the Chargers this upcoming week. If they lose to the Chargers, I think that is the official nail in the coffin, if my math is correct. But if they beat the Chargers this week, there is a snowball's chance in New Mexico, but there's still some work to be done there, and they have to win this week. Like they've had like 3 must-win games in a row, I know, so like pound of salt, but this is the literal mathematical must-win, because I believe at this point, if you lose and it dropped to 6-8, I don't think there's a way out, because that put the Chargers at 10 wins, and they'd be at 9 that put them at the max they could get is 9 wins with no tiebreakers, because the only tiebreaker they have is the Colts, who are terrible, and we'll talk about them in a moment. They're not a concern whatsoever, but all those teams will be competing with the Bills, the Chargers, the Texans, the Jaguars. That's 4 of their losses. Like you don't have a tiebreaker over any of them.
Yeah. Yeah. By the way, I think we need to get a Colts suck counter going for this episode. That we're already at 4.
Well, you know what? That's a mess. That's a good transition that's a good way to transition into our next topic. That team is an absolute mess, to say the least. They are 8-5, but that's about as good as it's going to get. As well, Daniel Jones is out for the year now. The torn Achilles, broken leg simultaneously. Riley Leonard now has an knee injury. He is very much questionable. Anthony Richardson still has a broken face from 2 months ago. He's probably not playing this year, as he should, and it sounds like he almost had some serious eye damage, so don't put him in at this point. Who are you going to call? Apparently Grandpa Ghostbusters is Phillip Rivers onto the practice squad and a very real chance to play this week, as the reports say. So if you can't innovate, go back in time, I guess. Like if it's the future's not bright, just go back to what you know. What I will say with this one before we get into it, this is embarrassing on all accounts. This is the same team that brought in Jeff Saturday off the TV desk a couple years ago. They can't just suck normally. They have to find unique ways to suck. There's 2 more for the counter to just be embarrassing. However, all things considered, when you talked about we were this move not happening away from seeing Tyler Warren at quarterback, which would be hilarious, but I don't think we should do that. Who Phillip Rivers has a son older than Tyler Warren, by the way. Just throwing that out there. This kind of makes sense in a really ass backwards type of way, considering Phillip did work with Shane Steichen in Los Angeles / San Diego. They actually apparently talk every week, because they run the Phillip Rivers high school team runs the same offense. So from the mental standpoint, it makes the most sense in the world, because you're talking about bringing a guy on Tuesday to potentially play Sunday. Obviously the physical part of that's a mess, but mentally, how many guys we talked about the Baker Mayfield coming in off like 48 hours notice and playing a game for the Rams, like how asinine that was. This is not too far behind when you think about it. The difference is this guy's 45 years old. You're prying a middle-aged man away from his family at Christmas time to go play the Seahawks in Seattle. This is elder abuse when the pass blocking offensive line has been average-ish this year. It has not been very strong, and you're starting right tackles in concussion protocol. You're going to be out year 2 starting. Take the Seahawks to cover. We'll leave it. I don't know what the number is, but we're going to take the Seahawks to cover. I don't care what the number is. JSN, take the overs, but this is the mess, but it's hilarious. At least it's going to be funny. That's all we got at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to all the dag nabbits and the gosh darn it's. Because he's going to be mic'd up this week. Again, there's no doubt in my mind he is the guy that's mic'd up.
I want him and Shane mic'd up. I want them side by side with their gosh gone it gollies simultaneously.
But I mean, it's not like Phillip Rivers ever predicated his game off of being mobile or athletic or anything to do with physicality. Even his throwing motion
reeks of inathletic.
Yeah. It reeks of, you know what? I'm just getting this from my hand to their hand and letting them go make plays. That's what he does well. And that's what he's always done well. And the things that hurt him was when he was asked to hold the ball for longer than 2.5 seconds. That's when it hurt him. And it's because he's not athletic. He can't run away. Well, guess what? I'm not asking him to hold the ball for longer than 2.5 seconds. You don't need to go sling 40-yard bombs. It would be great if you could, but you could set those up. You have JT. Realistically, Rivers is there to get the ball from the center to the running back, because right now there was nobody else on the roster that could do that and still have weapons on the field. Like you do that with Tyler Warren. As much as my fantasy team might love that, I don't think I get points for quarterbacking play when he's in the tight end role, unfortunately. But you know what? Maybe I have to talk to my commissioner DJ about that. But no, you know what? I don't hate this though. Yeah, I don't hate this though. I mean, he gets to use his weapons with where they are. His receivers, they're not necessarily get away from guys outside of Alec Pierce. They're very much quick slant type of guys underneath, things like that. Quick routes, and that works well for what Phillip Rivers does. So do I hate it? No, but I don't love it. I mean, you have Joe Flacco out there, and I think every Colts fan out there just rolled their eyes at me hearing that.
But get the Bengals to release him at least too. You got to be like, hey, do me a solid.
Yeah, I mean, you could have traded a 6th-round pick for him again.
Trade deadline's passed. You can't trade.
Well, it's fair. All right, maybe just I don't know, figure something out.
Believe me, I thought about this. I've been cranking my mind of how do we get Jameis Winston
somewhere, right?
Like, how do you get Jameis Winston in there? Like, how do we figure this out? Like Giants, come on.
Yeah, but no, honestly, it doesn't. I don't hate it, but I mean, I do find it funny that they went and got Santa Claus to come out of retirement, and he already comes with his whole herd of elves. So literally, he has a son throwing to a grandson in high school football next year. Like, we are at the point where he is old man winter, and he is coming to, I'm going to say, reign supreme. I laugh because, like, I honestly don't hate this for the Colts because I think it's what they need. He comes in, he's feisty. We all know who Phillip Rivers is as a person. Everybody in the locker room will fight for him. And I think that's a huge part of what the Colts need right now. They are stumbling. There's no true leader, vocal leader leading them. And I think that's where Phillip Rivers will come in and be like, rally the troops. You might hate me, but you know what? I'm going to get you 3 wins, maybe 2 wins. I don't care. He's going to get some wins. There are going to be at least one more win in the column by the time Phillip Rivers is done this season. And you put that wherever you want to put that. But I don't hate it, man. There's still plenty of weapons for the Colts. And really, all of their problems are not necessarily quarterback problems. Most of their problems are, where did your defense go? Because it was good in the first 6 games of the season. And right now it's like, hey guys, it's Christmas time. Come play. You need to get a Christmas present other than Cole, right? So yeah, I don't know. We'll see, but I don't know. I'm excited to see old man Winter come back, and he gets to apply his trade in a dome. So it's not like he gets the old man shakes either from being out in the snow. Granted, Seattle is going to be cold this weekend, so good luck with that. But I'm not worried for real.
To be fair, the season was already kind of over regardless. Like, it was over 2 weeks
For
ago
you.
when, in theory, it was. I think anyone who's seen that any of these Daniel Jones or the Colts play the last few years, they knew it was over after you lost to Kansas City. After you really lost to Pittsburgh, like at that point, it's like, this is going to go downhill. However, he does know the game. Like, he is going to be one of the, as we've learned from Aaron Rodgers, Matthew Stafford, those guys from the golden age of quarterbacks. They can still go out there and find it because they understand the game mentally as well as anybody, and they literally zero athletic traits whatsoever to his game. So as long as he can still throw it without his arm falling off, and he can not get assaulted, basically, if they could just keep him from getting assaulted, I think he could at least semi-move the ball in ways where they might back-ass their way into a win or two. Not this week, of course. This week they're getting cooked. But after that, maybe you steal one against Jacksonville or the 49ers. So, like, there's an ass backwards way they could trip face first up the stairs into 10 wins still. Unlikely, but there is a chance in heck.
Yeah, and I'll also add this. I also don't, first of all, I don't think we've ever had 3 quarterbacks starting that are over the age of 40 or older at any point in the modern game. But I think it's worth conversating about what is the modern football game today. And obviously we'll talk about this a little bit later when we talk Heisman stuff, but quarterbacks in today's day and age aren't asked to throw for 300 yards anymore. The last great ones to do it, you named them: Aaron Rodgers, Joe Flacco, Phillip Rivers are still playing, Matthew Stafford. 4 guys those are the guys that used to go out there and try to hit 400, 500 yards a game. Today's quarterbacks can get away with 150 yards. Just don't turn it over. You get 1 touchdown. Like, you have a running game. You hold the ball for 8 possessions if you get lucky in a game. Like, I think of all the possible scenarios that the Colts could have gone through. I still don't think this team's over with. I think there's more fight. I think this team has had the core of this team has had too many letdowns in the past to just accept that, hey, we were just killing it. Like, let's just fall off the face of the map. Like, I don't think they're that team. This is a team that rallied from being 2 wins into the season and almost making the playoffs 2 years ago, 3 years ago, whatever it was. And so I think this is one where, honestly, man, I'm actually kind of excited because at least it's going to be entertainment. Whatever it's going to be, it's going to be the most entertaining thing we ever see. And you know what? Maybe we get the return of the RTDB hat from Quentin Nelson because I need that. I need that in my life.
If they can get healthy defensively, then maybe there's a chance. But when your 2 starting corners are now out, one of them's had his 3rd concussion of the year. That's like DeForest Buckner's been out, and we've seen what's happened since he's been out. Like, you got to get healthy. We'll see. It's good. Like you said, it's going to be fun and interesting.
It's going to be a wintry game in Seattle, and that's the important part. That because I think that evens out Sam Darnold's abilities for a little bit.
Yeah, my concern is the number 11's out there somewhere, and no matter how, there's nobody you could really put on. Even if Darnold misses by 8 yards, JSN will go find it.
If you find it through the snow.
If anyone's going to do it, I trust JSN this year. I trust him to literally do anything this year.
That Seattle snow, man. I don't know. It's not easy to see through.
It's not easy. And you know what? Where there's a will, there's a way. And JSN has shown the ability to have a will at all times. Somehow he's just perpetually open. But let us know down below what you all think of this move. I think it's hilarious, but the Hennessy's on standby just in case. And interesting enough, Riley Leonard and Phillip Rivers are actually very close. So if nothing else, maybe Riley Leonard's good to go and Phillip is the old uncle in his ear that he needs. You never know. This could go 1,000 different ways, and not one of them is going to be boring. But as you mentioned, they still find themselves in the race for the playoffs. They are not out of it yet. The AFC playoff picture, well, you know what? I'm not even going to explain it to you. Let's take a look at it because it's beyond words. We'll start with just who's in. Denver now is playing the 1 seed with the Patriots as the 2, the Jaguars at the 3, the Steelers stumbling into the 4 spot with the wildcard teams being the Chargers, Bills, and Texans in that order. These are the matchups we would be looking at if the playoffs ended today. And as we look at just outside of the standings, those aforementioned Colts, if it wasn't for those gosh darn tiebreakers, they might have a chance. Followed by Baltimore, Kansas City, Miami. Because of Miami, Kansas City find themselves in the 10 spot, not the 9 or the 8 spot. So weirdly enough, because Miami has to be 6 and 7 as well, gosh damn that number, they make it so Kansas City is now even forced farther down because of weird butt backwards tiebreakers. But as we look at the AFC playoff picture, we'll start with what surprises you and where do you think this could be shaken up, or do you think it's going to hold true?
The Bengals. The Bengals surprised me the most. Out of all of this, the 4-win Bengals are still not eliminated mathematically.
Thank you, AFC North.
And that is the craziest part of all of this to me, is because we could have a situation where Cincinnati can potentially make the playoffs as an AFC North team. And then we have Kansas City, no Pittsburgh, no Baltimore, all out of the playoffs. And that's a crazy scenario that you could have Cincinnati jump everybody because of the AFC North. No Baltimore, no Kansas City, none of that. You would have no Pittsburgh after all of that. And it's just never ending for the AFC. It just continues to be there. We knew the AFC South, there was probably going to be 2 teams fighting it out. Well, there's 3 teams fighting it out because Jacksonville decided to get healthy. But they are still stumbling. It's not a pretty winning Jacksonville team. So there's always that possibility they fall. But yeah, for me, it's the fact Cincinnati still has a fighting chance, and their fighting chance starts against Baltimore this week. And the way Joe Burrow is back and playing, I wouldn't be shocked to see them go on a run.
What's crazy is if they would have just held their lead against Buffalo this week, if they just didn't choke away that big lead they had, Buffalo would be sitting at the 7 seed, basically holding on for dear life, and the Bengals would be a hop, step, and a skip away from being in the playoffs as well. What's really interesting is depending on how things play out the rest of the way, as you mentioned too, there is no Lamar Jackson there right now. There is no Joe Burrow. There's no Patrick Mahomes. Buffalo's not confirmed either. They're in the driver's seat. They should get there, but there's a weird chance that the consensus quote-unquote top 4-ish quarterbacks could potentially be out of the AFC playoffs this one. I don't think it'll happen. I think Buffalo's going to be fine. I think they're going to get in there, but it's amazing how the dichotomy of the AFC when you look at it. But so we look at, I also believe what's going to change is I think Houston is going to take the division. I think, as you mentioned, Jacksonville's up there. They've earned that spot, but they've been in some weird games where Houston, now that CJ Stroud, this might seem backwards, but I feel like him sitting and watching Davis Mills while he's going through concussion, seeing how Davis Mills was almost doing things in a very uniquely different way, and the way he got Nico Collins involved especially, He actually really said, you know what, Nico was out there somewhere, something CJ hadn't quite done as much early in the year. Now I think he's been able to amplify that while being like, all right, I have the best defense in football, if not number 1.5. Like, I'm not even giving 2. They're either 1A or they're 1B. They are that good. Your running game is tolerable. The offensive line is surprisingly playing a whole lot better in the last 6 or so weeks. Like, they're not getting ramrodded like we saw early in the year. I think it's unlocked a different level of Houston. They are going to be scary going down the stretch. I think they're going to end up taking the AFC South because they do have the Colts again. They do have Jacksonville again, I believe. Like, they're already 4. Actually, they have one more game against the Colts. They'll win that game. So they're 4-1 in the division. They'll be 5-1. They'll have the tiebreaker over Jacksonville most likely, unless they end up both 5-1. Then we'll see. But I just think Houston's really good. And if you give them even a 1 home playoff game, that's going to be a problem for everybody. They're a problem just for existing.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't tell Hector that. He thinks that's a good problem to have.
Well, it's a good problem for them. It's a problem for everybody else.
I think your point on CJ is a fantastic one. I think CJ got too into his own head for being safe with the ball. And we see that a lot with young quarterbacks, especially, going through year 3 through 5. You see them not necessarily take a step back, but it's, again, and I said this going into a sophomore year, it's not necessarily going to be a regression. It's just going to be a stationary thing. And it's with him, he didn't take his regression a sophomore year. He took a stationary step. And then this year, it does feel like a slight regression where he's like, man, I can't turn the ball over. And it resulted in just really bad decisions and holding the ball too long. And maybe it is something where he was sitting on the sideline, going through protocol, watching Davis Mills just say, you know what? What do I have to lose? Nico is up there. My receivers will go make plays. Dalton Schultz is still a fantastic tight end. Let me use all of them because our defense is giving us plus field position every single time. And I think that recognition by him to see that, hey, maybe I don't have to be perfect every play. I can play mistake-filled football, maybe not heavily mistake-filled football, but small mistakes here and there, filled football and be fine. I think that realization helps. Also, I think Nick Chubb is finally getting his legs underneath him for real. And while it's not been great by any means, it's been an improvement over the lack of a running game. And then Marks has had a great step up as well. So between those two carrying the load, really it's been Marks and then Chubb inside the 20s. And it's been a huge help for this team offensively. But yeah, it doesn't hurt when you have, the best defense 1 through 5, I think we've seen in a few years. It's a scary defense and nobody really wants to deal with it because those corners, good luck like trying to deal with those corners. The safeties, might be one of the best safety duos we've had, especially since they're young. I think that's a huge piece to it. And by the way, best move they've ever made, getting rid of Gardner Johnson. That's it. Thank goodness. And it's ever since they got rid of him, guess what happens? They win. So good job, Houston.
And didn't even mention that pass rush duo with Danielle Hunter.
I don't need to.
They speak for themselves.
Yeah.
What I will say is what's interesting about Stroud, I think the best way I could describe it is you mentioned like he's not scared to make a mistake, but he's also not being reckless. He's playing that golden era of quarterback play that we kind of talked about where he's seen it, he's ripping it. He's not overthinking. He's not worried about the pick. He sees it, he rips it. More often than not, it's just letting it go. And I think that was one thing he mentioned in interviews, just trusting what you see and letting it go. Not being – I think that was the issue we've talked about with a lot of the quarterback plays. There's almost an over-conservative nature of not wanting to turn the ball over, wanting to because that's what coaches always say, like, don't turn the ball over. If you don't throw an interception, we have a chance, but then you leave plays on the field. Obviously, you don't want to throw picks, but sometimes you'll take 6 times letting it rip for a first down or a touchdown to 1 pick if you have to, more often than not. I think that's what we've seen historically and trusting what you see, and I think that's really helps take his game to the next level. So the AFC, as we can tell looking at it now, there is 8 teams that have 8 wins. And so that's incredible. But you know what's even more funny is if we go to the NFC, it might be even more. It's even more ridiculous. Leading the way, the Rams with the 1 seed at 10-3. The Packers after a very interesting close win now at 2 with 9-3-1. Thank you, Cowboys. The Eagles sitting at the 3 seed barely at 8-5. The Buccaneers holding on for dear life at 7-6 for the 4. We got Seattle, San Fran, and the Bears for the wild card. And as we just look at the standings, thought the AFC was competitive. The Detroit Lions at 8-5 on the outside looking in. Carolina 7-6 just on the outside looking in. The Cowboys, thanks mostly in part to the Eagles, just outside at 6-6-1. JJ9 and Minnesota, technically not mathematically eliminated, but they're pretty darn close. But you look at the NFC, they're arguably 10 deep because of what is offered via the NFC East, thanks to Philadelphia. But Same kind of question. How do you think this changes, or do you think it holds? And at the same time, what's surprising you the most here?
Yeah, I'm going to start with the Bears being my most surprising. I think everybody is slightly surprised. I think you predicted them to be really good preseason because I was on the opposite end of the spectrum of like,
I had them at 8 wins, so they've already surpassed
yeah,
that. I expected them to
I,
have a nice stretch, but not quite like this.
I don't even think I gave him 8 wins. I think I
You
gave
give them
him
my
like five or six. Like I don't know what it was. But yeah, I definitely look bad about that, and I feel bad about that. But I think the funniest thing here, like beyond the Bears, is the fact that again, Toyotathon hits, and then Jordan Love is here again. It surprises me every year, and I don't know why it surprises me, but it does that he continues to succeed in this period of time between November and December. It's crazy. Also, you predicted a tie happening, and I hate that you're right.
with the
And I hate,
Packers too.
yeah, with the Packers, and I hate that it's the defining thing between 2 and 7. I think that's crazy to me. They're obviously my surprise, but I do think obviously this is going to change. I look at that AFC West potentially as a spot where this is going to be some moving because whatever the 49ers have done, whatever blood magic they're out here pulling, it's working. They're getting healthy now, and they already have 9 wins. So when they actually get fully healthy in the playoffs, what's going to happen? I think the Rams at times are almost holding on. Obviously, they are that defense. Talk about a defensive line that is fantastic. Their defensive line is still pretty darn good, even without Aaron Donald. And then Puka has been what Puka is. Devontae looks fantastic. Matthew Stafford is throwing it back to like he's throwing a Megatron out there. I think the AFC West is going to have a bigger impact on where this playoff seeding ends up because you have the Seahawks still sitting there at 10-3. That's shocking everybody who's like, oh, Sam Darnold had one great season. No, he's still a really good quarterback, guys. Just in case anybody forgot, JSN is on MVP caliber run for a receiver. So yeah, that's where there's going to be some shakeup. I just don't know where it's going to end, but I do look at that Rams, Seahawks, 49ers run as like one of these teams is going to lead the NFC and the other one might fall themselves out of the playoffs. And I just don't know which one it's going to be. And it doesn't feel like any of them are safe enough, but any of them are bad enough to do either until it's going to happen.
I think that's a good way to put it. What I'm also kind of looking at too is obviously the Bears surprising they went from the 1 seed to the 7 seed after that loss to Green Bay. That's how unbelievably close it was. They were basically 9 yards away from potentially being the 1 seed, and now they find themselves on the cusp. So I think that's how interesting, just ridiculously close that it is. I'm also just really, how do I think about this? I just feel like this is going to be how it stays, honestly. I don't think we're going to see a lot of change. The one area I think there will be changes, I'm worried about the Eagles. I'm really concerned they just find ways to lose now, which is what really concerns me. It's not that they're bad. It's not like, oh, they're not good, that Jalen Hurts is terrible. Not even any of that stuff. It's just they find unique ways to lose these days, which is what really kind of started to concern me because they have a history of the great defense, we know about the run game, all that sort of thing, but I just can't see. They just find these weird ways to lose. Like we saw on Monday night against the Chargers. Jalen Hurts had his worst game since middle school, I'm guessing. Like, my goodness, he was all over the place. AJ Brown has come alive the last few weeks. He's getting the ball, he's making plays, but they've started losing. Saquon's has his moments. The defense has its moments. They just find unique ways to lose. I think there is a real chance the Cowboys run the table the rest of the way. They sneak their way and ass backwards because of that tie, because that would put the Cowboys at, see if they win 4 in a row, 10-6-1. So the Eagles, if they go 2-2 down the stretch, will put them at 10-7, which would give the Cowboys the nod. So if the Cowboys win out, the Eagles have to at least go 3-1, if my math is correct. So there's a real chance something just ridiculous like that happens. And Tampa Bay is so weird. They were so good to start the season. Baker was MVP. Baker was looking great. They were overcoming all the injuries. Emeka Buka was out there somewhere. It was working. They started to get healthier. Like Emeka's, the rookie wall smacked him upside the head a little bit. Baker's kind of fallen off the cliff a little bit, especially then when you throw in that shoulder injury. That's not helping. But even before that, he's starting to fall off. They've gotten healthier, but gotten worse. They are tied with Carolina right now. They are both 7-6, and they play each other this week, I believe. Like Bryce Young might be in the playoffs really quickly after being written off his entire career, basically, since he took his first snap. So I think 3-4 have some real danger to shake up, and 2-7. I love that game got flexed to Saturday when they play each other, not this coming week, but the next week. Great move. Caleb Williams has some work to do, but I think he's showing he's going to be an NFL quarterback, and I think he'll be fine. I think the Patrick Mahomes 2.0 stuff, as we talked about during that draft season, was out of control.
Stupid.
That was asinine, but I think we're seeing what he can do. And what Ben Johnson's done with that team as a whole, just flip the script on them completely. That being said, the Rams and the Seahawks this week, the battle for the winner of that is the Super Bowl favorite, in my opinion. Or not this week, sorry, next week. The winner of that one is the Super Bowl favorites. I'm going to presume they both win this week. We know Seattle's winning, and they're winning by a lot this week. Not even a question about that. The Rams are presuming they win. We're going to see the Rams Seahawks play each other 3 times this year. I'm really starting to believe that, barring some tomfoolery in the playoffs. Or the worry is knock, big game Sam Darnold from last year comes out. That's obviously the big concern. But I think the NFC is going to be – I think they're just going to shake up. I think most of it's going to hold. But like I mentioned, I think 3 and 4 could get really interesting. But I do think – the other 4 in that case, I think the other 5 are all going to find their way in the playoffs still.
Yeah, that's fair. You know what's funny about the Eagles is they're kind of like the Chiefs, right? Where it's just what happened is what you're left thinking every time you watch them play and one of these games happens. And I think this game, especially Monday, was a very good example of how this season's gone for the Eagles. They have the ball first and goal on the 2-yard line. And instead of lining up for the tush push like the Eagles will have done every time for the last 3 years, they decide to run out of shotgun and they score a touchdown. It's called back. And you're like, okay, what happens? Well, then it's 3 straight plays of just garbage. They miss a field goal and then they get the ball back somehow for an unnecessary roughness penalty. And you're just like, how did this happen? And you end up with a field goal attempt again and you miss. And I think that's just, it's the ultimate Eagles just example right now of how this team is run. And I made this point in our group chat or before, maybe it was off air, through just mine and yours text. Something's wrong with the head coach with the Eagles. I don't know what the answer is, what the solution is. It's not an OC situation. It's not a DC situation. Sirianni has been there through all the downs every single time. And yet he keeps getting the free pass. And I think it's time to start looking at your head coach as potentially being the problem. The players are there, the talent's there. There maybe is some issues with Jalen not making his decision soon enough, but for whatever reason, that offense is just not able to get on the same page. And it always felt this way when I'd watch the Cowboys and there was an OC and a head coach that were both offensive minded and they'd be in each other's way. And this was what it feels like it's just like you watch them play and they're good teams, but there's just always something preventing them from going over the top. And I wonder if that's the case here with Sirianni and the Eagles. It just, something's not right. Something's not meshing with them. And the talent's there. We've seen the talent. We've seen them in the Super Bowl. So they're there. Something's wrong. And it's got to start with the head coach. Somebody has to hold him accountable because right now he's not holding himself accountable. Or he's continuing to get in the problem because he feels accountable and he's continuing to be a problem. So I don't know what the solution is, but something's wrong with the Eagles, and it's got to start with Sirianni being looked at.
I'm going to blame their fan base for egging coaches' houses because they just throw temper tantrums and throw snowballs at Santa. I'm going to presume that the ability to control their ability to control their emotions is the exact reason for this. That's the only way. They got the Super Bowl. They got 2 appearances in 4 years, and it's all hell still breaking loose. But you know what? We'll see because they only have to win all they need is the Cowboys to lose, which they've done plenty of this year, and they're fine. It literally will take the Cowboys winning out and them continuing to collapse. So I think there's still a long ways to go for them to have to really worry. That's why I think it'll be fine. There's a lot to shake out. I think what's going to be a big conversation is if things hold and Detroit doesn't make the playoffs. That's when I think there's going to be some weird conversations to be had. There's going to be some conversations to be had. I don't know what they will be. I don't know what the conversation is, but there's going to be some things to talk about there for sure. But
honestly, if the Lions don't make it though, you got to give them another season because you just lost both coordinators. I think that's a huge part. Both coordinators, and you lost some of your position coaches at the same time.
I mean, I would, but you know how the NFL is not for long.
The Lions should because they've given plenty of worse coaches more leeway. So
I think they need to find an actual offense. I don't like Dan Campbell calling plays. It's not that I don't think he can. I just think it's better when he has the pulse on the entire team separately with someone else. there's a handful of guys I don't mind doing, like Sean McVay, et cetera. Like they've mastered it in a way, but
from the standpoint of a head coach calling plays, and I've said this on the show before, I hate it because a head coach's job is to not be specifically dedicated to one position group or one talent group. It's to be dedicated to the entire roster and making sure that team is running and operating successfully. It's no different than any business. Your CEO should not be the head of your sales department. Those should never be the case. You should have an operations manager. You should have a CEO. You should have a sales director. That's exactly how it should be in football too, because you allow your coaches to actually succeed. And the reason why coaches like McVay can succeed to some degree, and it's not even, I also even say it's not even to fully benefit the entire team because it doesn't. Honestly, you see McVay get too caught up in the offense too often, and there's a defensive possession happening, and he's blowing situations. He's missing the chance to call a timeout to save his team. Those things happen, but you do end up with Andy Reid like coaches who, yeah, he's definitely involved in the offense, but he's involved in the setting of the standard for the offense, and then he allows his OC to call individual plays. And I think that's where the difference needs to go between coaches. But yeah, I hate it. I've hated it for many years. Do not give me a head coach that wants to call plays because I'm going to sit here and judge him harsher than I would a regular head coach because you're responsible for two groups, not just one. And if your group isn't performing and the team isn't performing, you're doubly responsible in a lot of cases. So yeah, get an OC if you're the Lions. That solves at least one problem.
Or at least get an OC that you trust. I think if he had always been someone that called the plays, that'd be one thing. But the fact that he felt the need that he had to take over because it wasn't operating well, that's what more worries me. Like, especially if you have a defensive, like let's say you have an offensive coach and you have a defensive coordinator you really trust the experience. I look at Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores. I think it can work very well dynamically off there. I think there are Steve Spagnuolo, Andy Reid, Sean McVay and Shula. Like there's ways it can work. I think it's how do I put this? If you're the kind of guy, Dan Campbell is the over aggressive, the one making the calls, you're making the call to go for on fourth down. You want to be aggressive. You want to do that. That's why I want someone else to handle the schematic part of it. Like he's got it's like if Mike Tomlin was calling the defense, I wouldn't love that as much because he's setting the tone. So I think if you're the tone setter in that sort of way, then I want the analytical guy calling the play or vice versa. If you're the analytical guy, then calling it's one thing. It's a very situationally nothing.
The Joes and Schmoes coach versus the X's and O's coach. And I think that matters too.
Nothing fits perfectly in a box, and there's anomalies to every rule. But if I'm the Lions, I want them to go back to what they had previously, where you have the one dedicated coordinators. Yeah. I think that's when they were at their best because, well, that's just when they were best. Numerically speaking, you won 27 games in 2 years, as opposed to now where you're at 7.
If they need somebody to get on the same page as Dan Campbell and call plays, just give me a call. I'm 2 hours away. It's not that bad. I can do exactly what Dan wants to do if he just sets me the game plan and it says you need to call these in these situations. Don't worry, Dan, I got you, boss. 4 verts every play, Jared Goff go, and then I'm going to run the ball 95% of the time.
Yeah, I think to get on the same page as Dan Campbell, you need about 17 more espresso shots just to start the morning.
Well, somebody's got to balance them out, right? And my job becomes really easy, right? Dan, are we going for it? Of course we're going for it. I don't even need to ask you. Just want to make sure you give me a head shake.
All right, Jared Goff, you're punting this.
So, Penei Sewell throwing a touchdown, correct? All right, cool. Let's go.
Well, on that note, we're going to transition out of the NFC playoff picture. We're going to start talking a little bit of hardware. It's time for the MVP ladders. We're getting into the nitty-gritty of the season, where I'm going to go through the top 3 candidates for NFL MVP. Starting at the bottom, Jackson Smith and Jigba continues to put on a clinic. He finally kind of got back. They finally got him the ball again this week after what they did to the Vikings and their 18th string quarterback. He didn't really play a whole lot, basically. They just coasted. This week, 2 touchdowns, 87 yards, continues to be absolutely awesome. And he's about to put up 200 yards and 3 touchdowns this week, so he's probably going to climb next week. So JSN sitting at number 3. Number 2, Drake May. He's just been awesome all year. Even on a bye week, he gets to go up because Dak kind of fell off recently. So, yeah. Actually, he wasn't terrible this week. But in general, kind of fell off. So Drake May up to number 2. He's been really, really, really good. That's all there is to it. He's been very, very good. I don't think he should be the favorite because Matthew Stafford continues to be absolutely awesome. Leads the NFL in touchdown passes. I believe he's right up there in yards now. He still only has 5 picks. Even after imploding against the Panthers for 3 turnovers, he still only has 5 picks on the season. Playing the game is about high level as anybody. He should be running away with the MVP odds right now. For some reason, they have Drake May as the favorite, or maybe it's regressed back to even odds, but this is what we're looking at. I think it's Stafford's award to lose it this way. There's not even a surprise anymore. It's pretty straightforward for me.
Yeah, I had to laugh when you said the 18th string quarterback for the Vikings. I'm sorry, couldn't get over that because JSN with an 18th string quarterback would still be putting up MVP numbers with the way he's playing. It's been impressive. I think all three of these guys are well deserving. You mentioned Dak falling off. I mean, it's not like he fell off, but he's just in the echelon of where these three are performing right now. He's not been good enough. It's like no different than Jonathan Taylor, who's had an extremely good year, but his last few games have been not good enough. And so he's not here. So it's like, yeah. And we go back to that playoff outlook and you look at where those teams are that are on the players are on these teams. Look at those teams in the playoff rankings. It just makes sense because
10 wins, 11 wins, 10 wins. Yeah.
What Drake May's doing is insane for New England. That entire New England team has had a great turnaround with Vrabel leading the way, and Drake May's a big part of that. Stafford obviously carrying the load, whether Puka was healthy or not. I mean, don't get me wrong, revenge-filled Puka is an impressive monster, but Matthew Stafford's got to get him the ball, and Devontae's looked great with Stafford. So, and then like you said, JSN, you could be 8 feet off and you're still good. Don't worry, he'll go out and find it. So yeah, I like that MVP ladder for sure.
He's going to be so open it won't even matter if you're a little bit off. He just get it somewhere in a way where he can run underneath it in some way, shape, or form. He'll take care of the rest. But that's going to do it here for the tip-off. So I'll transition us into the main event. And for the main event, well, we're going to be talking college football for today. And for college football, it's that time of year, unfortunately. It's that for better and for worse, it is that time of year. The playoff, well, it's set, and we've been worried about this, and let's just take a look at it. Let's just at the top, surprised everybody. Number 1, Indiana, well deserved. The Big Ten champions, undefeated. They deserve it. Number 2, Ohio State. I don't love it, but I get it. I mean, they were undefeated up until the Big Ten championship game where you lost by the skin of your teeth, basically. Wouldn't put them at 2, but I won't yell about it. Number 3, Georgia, SEC champion. I put them at 2, honestly, buddy. You know what? 3 is cool. Texas Tech at number 4. I put them at 3, and I put Ohio State at 4. I give credence to conference championships, but I don't get it. Texas Tech's defense is awesome. Love it. Number 5, Oregon. Yeah, no comment there. That makes sense. Number 6, Ole Miss. Yeah, no comment. That makes sense to me. Number 7, A&M. Honestly, that makes sense too. I wouldn't hate if you put them at 6 ahead of or as well, but you know, that's cool. Number 8, Oklahoma. Yeah, that kind of makes sense to me as well. They have some good wins on their resume, so that makes sense. Number 9, Alabama. Okay, we're getting off the rails here a little bit. Like the first 3-loss team to make the college football playoff in history. Not just this playoff, but even when it was 4 teams. Those who call it the Alabama Invitational, the one that talk about preferential treatment, this is why. This is embarrassing. We'll yell about this later. Number 10, Miami. You weren't even in the top 3 in your conference, and here we are in the playoff, not even squeaking in backdoor. You are a comfortable 10 seed. I get it. You can't put Well, you should be able to. If you win your conference, that should be an automatic bid. I digress, though. I understand, though, you don't think you could put Duke in at 7-5 or 8-5, and I get it. I don't want them in there either. But rules should be rules is all I'm getting at with there. Number 11, Tulane. Shout out to them. They made their spot here. Number 12, JMU. Congratulations. You didn't go full stupid on this one. Good job, committee. The team that deserved a guide, and they're going to get slapped, but they earned their spot here. You can't be trying to play matchmaker before the games happen. You get them in there based on merit. JMU from the FCS to now one of the final 12. Congratulations to them. JMU fans have to be absolutely hyped. That point spread's going to be 40 points, and I think they'll somehow cover and lose by 33. But you know what, Kelcey, you got a lot to say on this one, and I ramble a little bit about each team. It is your turn to tell us why Alabama has no business being here.
Okay.
Sorry, what, are you going to start somewhere else?
No. This is the hardest one for me is I hate Alabama with a burning passion. If you haven't heard me talk about it, well, you're going to hear me talk about it again. Don't worry. If you have heard me talk about it, just do something for the next 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Alabama is a good football team. Yes. They're also one of 5 teams to play 13 games in the regular season, technically. So I don't hate them being in the playoffs. What I do hate is the fact they didn't fall a single ranking spot from last year to this year, or last week to this week. Now you might be wondering, well, why would that be? I'll tell you why that would be. Because they love rematches. This committee is a bunch of idiots who just are like, we'd love to see 2 teams who faced off already once. Let's see them face off again. That's going to be really, really fun for us. So here we go. Again. Not just once, but twice in this first 4 games because you also have Tulane and Ole Miss. Now, if you bumped Alabama down to the 11 or 12 seed like they should be as an at-large team, then they'd be playing an Ole Miss or an Oregon, which would be a really darn good game, by the way. And then while I'm at bumping down teams, I understand you have to have an ACC team in because there's a regulation around that because you guys are idiots and you signed a contract with the Power 5 to only have Power 5 teams in, just one representative each, even if they're terrible. I'll never understand that, but go figure, unless you're the Pac-12 because there's only 2 teams this year. But so you have to have Miami in there. Okay, at number 10, when they weren't even good enough to supplant Notre Dame for all of your weekly rankings, yet you put them at number 10, which is where Notre Dame would have been. I need to understand this from the standpoint of why are you doing weekly rankings and you're ranking a team below another team when their head-to-head was the opposite? One. So you can never so you set a standard that this team can never jump that team based on your previous 6-7 weeks of this entire conversation around rankings. Okay, you set that standard. Now live by that standard. You have to live by that standard. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If both teams are alone and they do not do anything, they're inactive on a week, you cannot jump one team over the other. Do I think it's fair to say it that way? No. But they set the stupid standard when they first released the rankings and every week after that. So you have to live by your own stupidity when it comes to the final bracket, and you have to deal with the hate. Now, the 2-ply conversation. If you're a baby and you take your entire ball and walk home, and then you put a regulation in place for 2026 that you are going to be a playoff team guaranteed if you are one of the top 12 teams in the rankings up until the final week, that's BS on so many levels. And as a kid who grew up a Notre Dame fan, absolute garbage situation by the organization, by the entire university's athletic department, because that is not fair to any other team. Because as you said, JMU is a well-deserving team that if this was next year would not be in the playoff ranking, would not be in the playoff at all. Tulane might not be in the playoffs because of that rule next year. 2 teams that are well-deserving and have actually performed night in and night out better than the 2 teams I'm talking about at 9 and 10 in the playoff. You gave 2 teams that are not Power 5 a lower ranking because they're not Power 5. Get these two schools recruit from the same geolocations that Alabama and Miami both recruit from. One recruits Louisiana, which has some of the best athletes to go into college football. The other recruits from Virginia, DMV area, which has some of the best recruits to go into college football. And you're going to say like, no, you're not good enough. Why? Now, I get there's a problem from coaching standpoint that coaches are allowed to leave earlier, so maybe that's why they got ranked lower. I don't care. They're not ranked based off of their performance going forward. They're ranked off their performance for the first 12 weeks and championship week. And they have 2 of the 12 best teams, 2 of the top 10 teams in my eyes. I hate that situation as like Alabama should not be number 9. Miami should not be number 10 based on the stupidity of the committee and their standard settings. Do I think both should be a playoff team and Notre Dame should not? Yes, I do agree with that. And that is given purely the entirety of the season and their performances. I'll admit that the Miami is a top 15 team. Now, do I think BYU has a better case for being there? Yes.
Not when your quarterback wears 47, you're automatically eliminated for that.
But they're only 2
about
losses.
Your resume. You know what? If he switches his number to 4 or 7, then I agree with you.
Like their only 2 losses are against Texas Tech. So, like don't get me wrong, yeah, they are really bad, losses, but they are like your only 2 losses are to a top 4 team in the country. And that's so rough to sit there and like there's always something to be said. You got to win against the opponents that are in front of you, blah 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 blah, whatever, Coach Bielema, I don't care anymore. This is stupid from so many ways. If we're going to do a playoff ranking going forward, get rid of this stupid committee because they're fallible. Obviously, they failed miserably. Go back to the computer rankings in this format because then you can have the conversations you need to have because it's purely ranked on quality wins, strength of schedule, And did you win against the opponents in front of you? And not against this BS like, you know what's really cute? Let's have two teams like Alabama and Oklahoma go up against each other again. And then they get to go play the number one ranked team in the nation, Indiana, so we can prove that Indiana is not really a number one team. It's really what they want to do. But while we're at it, we're going to give Georgia a cakewalk potentially with no head coach on one team and no head coach on the other team. And then we're potentially going to give Texas Tech the hardest matchup because you have the best non-Power 5 and probably the second best team in the Big Ten that's not named Indiana. Like, they have set this up for a chance to get an Alabama, Ohio State national championship yet again, and it still kills me. Or it's an Oklahoma, Georgia, or an Alabama, Georgia competition. And I just like, stop. I want randomness. I like excitement. I don't want to see the same thing over and over and over again. I'm so tired of seeing the same teams in there. And it's not because they're good every year, because like you said, the first 3-win team, and there are better candidates that could have been there. Like, what are we doing? All right, I'm done now. I think that was 7 minutes. My bad.
If I were Alabama shouldn't be in there, put in Vanderbilt in that spot. 10-2. I know Alabama won the head-to-head. I don't care. You have 3 losses at that point. You shouldn't have lost to Florida State if that's the case. I'm sorry. I don't make the rules. If we're going to do this, if we're going to make the rules and we want to be as fair about it.
Don't struggle against Auburn when you should beat Auburn. Period.
I wasn't going to go there, but yes, exactly. If you struggle against Auburn, you shouldn't be anywhere near this. I don't care about the rest, but I digress there. If you need to have an ACC team in there, just make it the winner of the ACC. This picking your favorite ACC team is just ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. Duke should not be in there. They were terrible, but they did what they needed to do to somehow get there. It's just like imagine like when we were talking about the NFC South and Carolina got in there at 7-8-1 or whatever it was a few years ago. You're like, no, we don't like them and pluck somebody else. It ruins the point of the conference. Don't get me wrong. Miami's the best team in the conference on paper, but they diddly-daddled and screwed around too damn much. It's their own fault. Like, they did this to themselves. They shouldn't be here.
Why we play the game. It's not played on paper.
This is exactly where I'm going with that one is too. And if you want to say they backdoored their way in there, then like you said, 11 or 12, you backdoor your way in there is what it should be.
Yeah. Give them the back door. Give them the hardest non-top 4 team that they have to face off with.
My next gripe is I hate the fact that we mentioned that the bracket is set. It should reseed after the round 1. So let's say JMU somehow pulls off a miraculous win over Oregon, which won't happen, but just for the sake of it, then they should be playing Indiana. That just like every other tournament in the history of the world, the lowest advancing team will play the highest team with a bye and so on. So like you said, it shouldn't be, let's try and shoot on Indiana by giving them arguably the toughest matchup here and give Georgia the cakewalk potentially. Then Ohio State A&M is a good matchup though. That looks fun.
Yeah,
but
maybe
like they're looking at the rest of it.
Shows up.
Exactly. By the way, A&M, 1 loss, didn't lose till the last week of the season, gets stuck at 7 after being ranked number 3 for most of the time, number 3 or number 2. Unfortunate for them how that kind of worked out. But my point being, it should be a reseeding like every other tournament in the history of mankind that's been worthwhile. Just like if Oregon somehow wins, they should play Texas Tech. Cool. They have it seeded, so it might work out that way unless there's an upset, which is what's annoying. It's like if there's an upset, you take away the fun. So I digress. there. The last thing I want to point out, too, for anyone who's saying, why do we have Tulane and JMU? It's an embarrassment. I want us to look at this from last year. Clemson and Texas, a whooping. Ohio State, Tennessee, a whooping. SMU, Penn State, a whooping. Indiana, Notre Dame, not quite a whooping, but one side of Notre Dame was up like 27-7 most of that game until the very end of it, to when Signetti put out a sig, basically. You're seeing the common thread here is Oregon, Ohio State, 41-21. Texas, Arizona State, 39-31. Didn't see that coming. Cam Scatterboot coming out party. Notre Dame, Georgia, 23-10. And I know Carson Beck got injured in that game. That's why it's unacceptable to have it that it wasn't closer at that point. But my point being with all this is, if we're really going to bitch about all these other teams getting there, it's not like it was close last year with the teams that should be in there. Tennessee, Ohio State, no one had a problem with that one. In fact, Tennessee was a favorite, and they got smacked up and down the field. Oregon, Ohio State got ramrodded in the first 28 seconds of the game. It was over. Dylan Gabriel was shot before that first quarter ended. I don't want to hear it about the Tulane JMU shouldn't be in there. They're going to get ramrodded, blah, 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 blah. We said it last year with Indiana, and they had the most competitive first-round matchup. They lost. But at the same time, you don't want them in there. Tell everybody else to take care of business. You're on the damn field. Alabama, you don't lose to Florida State. I guarantee this is an issue. Notre Dame, you don't lose to Miami. I guarantee Miami, you don't lose to Louisville and SMU. I get it. The playoff gives you leeway to where you can lose a game, maybe 2. maybe two if depending on that's why you see some of these teams in here. But if you're Notre Dame, join a damn conference. If you don't like it, just join a damn conference. Go join the ACC.
Don't complain about the ACC gifting you a half ACC schedule and your opponents not being hard enough either, because they did that too. And that's just the dumbest thing. You are literally biting the gift horse. Like, why? Stop. Like, Notre Dame's just hurting themselves.
You have played two ranked opponents this year, I believe, or maybe it was 3, but 2 of them are playing each other right now at 10-7, and you lost both of them. That's the problem, is you don't have a marquee name to kind of hang your hat on.
And you almost lost to Northern Illinois.
Like, we could play the if, ands, and buts game, but Notre Dame, join a damn conference if you don't like it. You don't like the special treatment's getting weird. I think they're as good as, would they beat JMU and Tulane on it if they played? Probably, but that's not your path in here. You want to be an independent. You have to get yourself in there. Like, I get it. Where they're ranked, they probably should have got in, but when you lose 2 games and you start 0-2, you can't really be asking for preferential treatment to where you take your ball and go home and throw a hissy fit. It's like the old meme from the BCS era is a team would lose 1 game and they'd be like, man, we were so good. We got so good down the stretch, but we lost that game. Man, we're going to kill in this bowl game to show them next year. Now it's like, I'm sad. I'm going home. It's a big pouty. I don't want to play in the Pop-Tart Bowl.
Let's not forget that the BCS, the 2 teams that probably have the biggest argument for BCS snubbing was Auburn in 2004. Yeah, 2004. When they were undefeated, unquestionable, the best team in the SEC. And then Utah as well, undefeated. Neither one of them got the chance to fight for the BCS championship game. Those are 2 truly undefeated teams going into, because at the time, tough schedules that would have been Power 4 conference schedules that they are today, and yet they got snubbed. Every other team that complained about snubbing, UCF, directly looking at you, didn't deserve a chance at the BCS national championship game. That's just like, there were so few actual snubbings, but there were enough in that 15-year period, whatever it was, 16-year period of the BCS, that it was like, you know what, there's an error here. Maybe we should fix something. And it feels like we went too overboard with the 14 playoff, but at least we got the teams right for the most part. There were very few exceptions. Like, you weren't snubbing 7 teams. You were snubbing 1. Okay, that's fair. Unfortunately, it's become a common theme that you have an opportunity to get teams in here, and guess who you're going to choose? You're going to choose the outsider Alabama. You're going to choose the outsider Ohio State. You're going to choose the outsider Georgia, and you're going to choose the outsider in Oklahoma. Now, is that the case that they just happen to all be in this year? Legitimately, 3 of the 4 of them deserve to be in. The 5th one, 4th one, just on the outside looking in. It's like, can we stop this? I want some difference. Like, I'm tired of teams wearing red, white, and black continuously being in the playoffs, dang it. I need teams with different colors. There are only 4 of the 12 teams with a different color than red, white, and black. And one of those teams has orange in it. And it's like, it's not even that good. So, I don't know. I'm so frustrated with the college football playoff situation because it's just stupid. It's yet again another human getting themselves involved that do not play the sport, do not understand the sport, or barely tangentially understand the sport. They're like, you know what? I got money. I'm going to go pay to be a committee member. Yay me. Or I'm going to be super biased for the school that I'm representing in this committee. Like, 12 representatives that are non-affiliated sounds fantastic to me. That sounds like a great option for a committee. Not 12 representatives that are fully affiliated, actively being paid by a school to represent them. Like, come on. Give me a CBA.
I think Texas Tech's going to be dangerous too. I'm just going to throw that out there. We're going to end this on a fun note before we get out of here. Moving to
Texas Tech is the scariest team on this entire.
I think if they get by Oregon, they're going to get by Indiana, Oklahoma, or Alabama. I think Oregon's the toughest one on that side of the bracket for them because I think defensively they can bring it. And even Oregon, I think that I would pick them over Oregon probably. Oregon's just weird. At any given moment, they could look absolutely unstoppable. So, and Dante Moore could start cooking.
You know, it would be a fun matchup to watch, and it would be completely offensive sided, and I don't care about the defense in this game. I'd like to see Jeremiah Smith take on Malachi Toney from just the standpoint of young receivers that are extremely talented and deserve their roses. Those 2 are the best receivers in the nation in my eyes right now. And like they deserve some roses. They don't have the best quarterbacks. Julian Sayin is the better quarterback, but Carson Beck is not. But Malachi Toney can play QB2.
So much better. Toney would have a much harder path to success for sure.
Yeah, it would not look great for that Miami team, but you'd see flashes for sure.
Absolutely. I think I'm looking forward to some of the games. I hate how we got here. It's still a mess. Either go to 16 or go to 8 is what it feels like is the point. Like where we're at right now, because they can't seem to handle 12. I hate to say it that way because I want more, but
they want to give they want to give teams buys, and they're like, oh, but we're gonna pick them though. We're not gonna give just any team a bye. Like technically speaking, JMU should be in the conversation for having a bye week because they are 12-1.
I wish they would have just let the conference winners get those 5 conference winners for the top 4 to get a bye. It's that simple. But no, we have to, because the ACC had to have a weird one this year with Duke. They had to get weird about it and ruin everything. It's like it should just be you win your conference, you get in, even if it's stupid. Well, tell everyone else in the conference to not be stupid. It's that easy. Like
the entire. You know what? Screw it. We're just going to the FCS model. We're just 24 teams.
I wouldn't hate it. And then move everything. Start it a little bit sooner. Take out a couple regular season games. Move it
24
sooner,
teams. Only championship winners get first round. Only conference winners get first round buys, and then a bunch of at-large bids of the next best.
Look, we won't have this issue moving forward with the ACC because James Franklin's turning Virginia Tech into the perpetual winner at 10-2. So it'll be fine. There'll be no more that. It'll be fine moving forward. So he'll save us from this tomfoolery, and next year it'll be better, right? Either way, that's going to do it here for the main event, which is now going to take us into Kelcey's favorite part of every show, and that is, of course, crunch time. And for crunch time, we're talking football. But Kelcey, you got some bones to pick. We thought the rant about Alabama was a good one. And Notre Dame, it ain't done yet.
Yeah. So, all right, let's start with the good of football. World Cup draw took place on Friday, and if you guys didn't see it, well, here you go. If you're watching on video, it's all 12 groups, Group A through L, and their layouts. You got Mexico Group A, Canada Group B, US and Group D. Those are just the host countries. That's why I'm naming them. I'm not naming everything else. But it's very important to note, and this is where the frustration comes in. There are 48 teams in the World Cup, supposedly. However, there are 6 undecided positions that will be made up of, get this, one of 16 potential other teams. So there are 48 that will be in there, but we won't find out who the final spots are through these playoffs until March. I have to wait until March to find out who the 4th team in the USA's group is. If I'm a Mexico fan, I have to wait until March to find out who the 4th team in my group's going to be. I can't even tell you who the group of death is because some of these teams that are late in the playoffs could turn the group into a group of death. So I just needed to point this out because it's not one full tournament. No. Here's the European qualifiers, the UEFA qualifiers to get in here. Here's the playoffs. You have 4 different paths is what they call them. Played through 8 semifinals. It's so stupid. I really hate it so much with a burning passion. But that's not good enough, right? Because, the UEFA has their playoff, but it's not going to be to start until March. So FIFA's like, hey, you know what else we should do? We should do an intercontinental playoff. So now you have teams from CONCACAF, Oceania, Asia, and African nations playing for the final 2 spots in this playoff through either path 1 or path 2. How'd you get seeded in these paths? Yeah, they threw you in a giant circular tub on a ping pong ball, and they let you pull it out. And if anybody watched the draw on Friday, they know that that's not rigged at all. No. There's no rigging when it comes to those. No chance. Obviously, if nobody knows, the rigging that took place actually on Friday was intentional. They've already known the group's places for the hosts. That's the only rigging technically, legally speaking. But yeah, it's so stupid that FIFA does this. I just pick your final groups when all the teams are there. I'm tired of thinking I know exactly who's going to be in the USA's group. I need to start looking it up. I need to start, building content for us. It's like, okay, that's content to build. We can't even build our content until March for these groups because I need to know who's there. So this is so dumb on so many levels. And on top of that, if you're a ticket buying fan and you want to go watch a specific country play, there are 16 to 20 teams that you have no idea if you're going to be in the World Cup. And this is a once in a lifetime event to try to come and watch. There are fans that will not know and will not have a chance to watch their country play because they will not know if their team, their country, will be representing themselves in the World Cup this year. And that's a disappointment on so many levels. This is just a failure from operational standpoint. You need to do better if you're FIFA. I've thought about this a lot. And DJ, you might correct me on this one. But there is not a single tournament that I can think of with seeded positioning that is laid out prior to all teams being finalized.
Not a
In
good
any
one, at
sport.
least.
I can't think of any sport in which there is a pre-seeded, pre-established layout for a team, for a tournament where there are seedings involved. I can't think of any sport.
Not a good one, at least. Nothing I can think of. Like,
Not
anything
legally,
worthwhile. Not a, yeah.
Yeah, I guess I should say not legally should any of them be rigged. But this is just, it's FIFA being FIFA, and I just hate it because I love football, I love soccer, and it just, this disappoints me so many levels. It's like, all right, guys, we're almost there, but let's do the final World Cup draw, but we don't have all our teams. We're just gonna figure it out.
It should be so easy. It's the simplest thing that's holding it back because, like you said, it's right there. Everything is ready to go, and you miss the simplest, most obvious thing. Like it's not something. It's something that could easily have been taken care of.
It's just like it's down to their windows. They don't properly lay out their windows right for playing these international games, and I get it. You can only play them at certain time frames based on club schedules. But dang it, the World Cup is important. It's the most watched sporting event in the world. And now you're having more teams, so it's going to be even bigger. Don't screw this up. And somehow they managed to, instead of playing in the November window and finalizing the playoffs there, they waited. They pushed it back to the next available window in the 2026 year, which is in March.
I'm still excited for the World Cup, but I wish they'd do a little bit better job getting us there. Like I wish the bridge wasn't shaking and creaking underneath me. I wish I could just get there comfortably, but
don't worry though. We will have more content coming out for World Cup coming forward, both here on High Low Sports and on the Belly Up Sports YouTube and all our social medias.
Absolutely. And we're going to end things off talking about fisticuffs, and we're going to go to the UFC as the final UFC pay-per-view event of the year and potentially ever with the new Paramount deal. Wrapping up this year, we've done bets for the pay-per-view main card every single event of the year. The reason we're bringing it up is because the last two have not been so good, unfortunately. We've had a bit of a rough record for the last one, but we did crank the numbers. Here's how we did on the year. Yearly total, 31, 17, and 2. And that's with going 1-3-1 just a few days ago and 1-4 before that. So you take those ones away, it was much better. 2 cards with 0 losses, which means if you parlayed them together, you won money. A 5-0 and a 4-0-1. Thanks, eye pokes. Which means a 62% hit rate, not including those pushes, 66% with them. So if you are looking for UFC bets, I'm not going to promise you the house or the world, but I'm going to say you're going to do pretty well. We had a pretty strong run, and hopefully 2026 will be a little bit better. We're not going to talk about the football bets because those ones I'm still trying to recover from right now. We'll figure those out at the end of the season, but it was a rough start. But it's early for UFC bets, so that's how we did on the year. Start off really strong, shaky at the end. Hopefully 2026, now that all the events will be free on Paramount Plus and CBS, will get even better because I won't have to try and watch them on an iPad upside down on 1380p.
Yeah, by the way, if you're 66% hit rate in like every other sport, your Hall of Fame numbers minus football in your completion percentage, but
66 will still get you there.
That'll get you there. In the current NFL layout, you'd be a top 12 quarterback.
I mean, Drew Brees was the only one that's really higher than that, but like Peyton Manning, Tom Brady, all those guys were in the 66 to 68. So we'll take it as long as I throw touchdowns with it.
Yeah. So there you go.
And not Brett Favre level of interceptions.
Hall of Fame number of completions for your bets this year.
And you know what? I'll take it. Hopefully we just do a little bit more, and hopefully I end up paying the mortgage with it one day. But remember, always bet smarter, not harder. Only bet what you can afford to lose. Don't try and pay your mortgage with it. That was a joke. But that's going to do it here for the High Low Sports Podcast. We thank the committee for voting us as the most likely show to be ending right about now. Appreciate you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you all again next week.